Hey, everybody, it's Dr. Kerry Reller. Welcome back to the Get Healthy Tampa Bay podcast. Today, we have a very unique guest, Genette Kova. And we have an interesting experience of how we cross paths, but I'm going to let her get started because I want you to tell everybody basically how you got into the profession that you are doing now. If you could tell us a little bit about that and who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I am Genette Kova, and I own Tampa Lice Removal in Tampa Bay. I got into it because I was a hairdresser when I was raising my kids. And during the course of that time, lice was a reality, but they really do a whole lot of training in beauty school. We were just told to please remove the client from the salon. That's how you deal with lice. So I was in beauty school, a salon thing. And then I moved to Florida and did not set up my business and actually went into working with the school district. So I worked at the juvenile detention centers and touched base with lice there too. But then after that, they closed the facility. I stayed at home for a year, did some remodeling. And sure enough, there was a company out of New York that was coming up and setting their business. And it's a relatively new industry. So they were looking for qualified people. And they had like about 50 people there that were wanting to take on the job. And I was the only one that stuck it out. So I actually set up their business here in the Tampa Bay and developed a really good reputation for them. After a few years, 4 years of working with them, they charged per the hour. So it was like $175 per hour and then like $100 thereafter. So I would get in the home, and it was a mobile service, and get in the home and go, okay, people, move it, move it, move it. So needless to say, I was cost conscious, and I just, was on the part of the mom and try to get everybody treated at an affordable price. And the company found out that they could make more money with novice people. And since I was a former hairdresser, I moved very quickly and knew what I was doing. So they stopped using me and forced me to start my own company. And then I very prayerfully said, Lord, you have got to help me work smarter, not harder. And sure enough, I just had this wonderful epiphany and brought all my knowledge from past experience and what I learned in beauty school and the makeup of the hair strand and just how chemicals work on the hair strand and things like that. So I developed my own system, and I guess it's a compliment, but most of my competitors are now using my system. But that's how I got in. And so we kind of consider it a ministry. So all of my technicians have children and love the Lord. So a big thank you to Jesus. But needless to say, we've been the longest lasting company here in Tampa Bay with 5 stars. And we just have the very people person feel. We're not about the money. People can tell it about us. And then our deal is not only do we eradicate the lice situation in your home and bring you back to normal, but then we actually go the extra mile and go ahead and give you the commercial tools that we use and then the know-how through a video on how to stay lice free. So I've had critics say, oh, quit doing that. You're going to ruin the market. And I just feel like the Lord has impressed upon me that there is enough lice to go around. And so it truly is kind of at pandemic level because the pesticides have kind of run their course.
Yeah. I did not know we were going to get business tips from you, but I definitely appreciated the way that you run your business. And basically how I came across Jenny was the same way that you said that basically when you're in the beauty salon and you see lice, you're asked to remove the customer from the store. So what happened was my husband took my son to get his hair cut and they were kindly asked to leave as well. So we had a great run and an experience, but luckily I found you because you definitely helped our family overcome this problem that is much needed. Yeah. Nightmare. Exactly. Yes, of course. So I wanted to talk a little medically and to describe basically what is a louse. And if you could go over that with us, that would be great.
Well, people often ask me where lice came from, and the only answer I can come up with the pits of hell, because they documented it for 3000 BC. So it's like, what purpose does the roach have? I don't know, but I don't know what the purpose lice has. It's just kind of a parasite, I guess. But let me tell you, though, of all of the ones that there are out there, this is the one you want. It's the one of choice because it's very easy to fix. And bottom line, it's a sign of a good social life. So the only way you can get lice is if your children have friends, or if they're active in dance or sports, or, if your kids are out there. So I kind of tongue in cheek, I don't do a lot of gamers because they're in the basement by themselves.
Right.
And then with the boys with the longer hair, I'm doing a lot more boys. So you have to have nice, beautiful hair, and they're all about the warmth of the body. And so your husband, the men, short hair, first thing they do is shave your head in the military. They eliminate the fear of lice right away. It's too cold,
Ah,
too cold. So
yeah.
that's not an issue.
Is that really why they shave their head?
I don't know, but I wonder if it isn't.
Yeah, that is interesting. You mentioned several things of like who's at risk, right? Kids, close contacts, like military or anybody else in close community dwelling centers, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
but honestly, it knows no age, race, gender, anything like that. So my oldest clients are, one was 94, one was 93, and then the youngest baby was 3 months because it had 5 brothers and sisters, and they
Oh
all
my
held
gosh.
baby. In my 12 years of doing this, I would say I've done 2 men, and they had 1 bug, and it's just because they had an infant and the 4
Mhm.
kids. But otherwise, it primarily, I do every race. So people think old wives' tales, we don't do Black people. Oh, yes. I talked to a gentleman from Africa, and I can't remember what country it was, but they just shave their heads, bring in the cooler hair. That's it. But, when people often say it's only for clean hair, no, it's pretty much for everybody's hair. But I would say that, like, African Americans, I do them. But if they have to oil their hair more often, like if you're truly from Africa, not African American, their hair is so coarse that if it's not oiled every day, it breaks.
Mhm.
So they are less likely. But because we're so blended anymore, I do every type of hair. Right now, my most difficult is blended Black hair and Hispanic, because
Mm.
Hispanic hair has a ton of hair, and then Black hair doesn't necessarily have a lot of hair, but it's very curly. So you put a lot with
Mhm.
curly, and little kids, oh my goodness. But yeah, lice is like Jesus. They love everybody.
So does the oil make it like repel the lice then?
To some extent, if you're oiling that much, but there's really no Caucasian person that could actually oil their hair enough to repel it and then still have friends.
Right.
So it's kind of an old wives' tale. So they really just survive. It is actually head lice, not body lice or genital lice. It's only head lice, goes straight north, jumps on your clothing primarily, doesn't have to be head to head, jumps on your clothing. So you can pick it up from chairs, restaurants, waiting at the doctor's office, emergency room, anywhere. So, and I have had the luxury of treating people in many different places. I've treated people on a 3-story yacht. I've
Wow.
treated people in the ICU. I mean, they just almost died like a few days later or earlier. And then condos, hotels, people coming down I-75, and they're like, oh my God, we have lice and my mom won't let me come and visit. So, I'm like, pull over. And so it's been a very interesting ride. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously that's wonderful. You're seeing all sorts of people get to hear, I'm sure, wonderful stories for them. Can you go through like the life cycle of a louse for us?
Sure. About 6 weeks. And so
Mhm.
within the 6-week period, they can lay between 3 and 10 eggs a day. So you're looking at about 200 eggs. Everything dies off of a host within 36 hours. So how it works is that a louse will get on you. Usually they're impregnated right away, females. So it's male and female. Interestingly enough, in my 12 years of experience, I've only found 2 man caves where there was 1 male on the head, plump and juicy, no wife, no kid. They definitely need each other. So the female gets on your head, takes a couple days to acclimate, maybe 2 or 3, and then begins to lay 2 to 10 eggs a day.
Mhm.
And so that particular egg that's laid day 1 will hatch in 7 to 10 days. So a week, week and a half. And then when it hatches, it takes another week, week and a half to become an adult. And then they start laying eggs. So then it becomes exponential. So you have like a good solid 3 weeks before everything becomes exponential. So the first 3 weeks, you kind of have an adult and a couple nymphs. the immature ones that are not laying. So that's a real key to prevention. And that's why we were going to talk about how to prevent. And combing your hair is what they used to do in the 50s. And you had a sterling silver mirror and brush and comb set. My grandmother had them. And I remember when I was in 20s going through an antique shop going, I should get one of those. They're so pretty. And then I remember looking at the comb and I went, but nobody uses a comb.
Mm-hmm.
And, that just stuck with me. And I thought, you know what? That's all they did is they brushed their hair and then they went over it with a fine tooth comb, which is the cliche about going over a contract with a fine tooth comb or nitpicking a contract. So the whole answer, prevention, is going back to combing your brushing and combing your hair. The key is lice is everywhere. You just remove it. So I tell everybody that it's okay to get a louse. It's leaving it there for 4 weeks. That's the problem.
Right.
So very preventable, a little proactive. It's good for your hair and scalp.
So you mentioned eggs, right? So it starts with the egg, and what's the other name for the egg is the nit, right?
Which there is confusion about the nit. So I'll stop you right there. There's 3 types of nits. One that is growing and viable, and then one that's brown. It's right at the scalp, and it needs the warmth of the scalp, like a chicken, the warmth of the hen sitting on the chicken to develop. So it's laid right at the scalp, and it's brown. In 7 to 10 days, it hatches. So how much hair that you can grow, you can actually figure out how old, how long, when it was laid. Eggs or nits that are far off the scalp are of no concern. The ones that are viable are right on the scalp, and they will determine when you actually have the lice. So if you look at an egg and it's an inch off the scalp, on an average, every month you grow a half an inch of hair. So if it's 1 inch away from the scalp, then you've had lice for 2 months.
I remember you, looking at my daughter's hair like that. Okay. Yeah.
So people go, where did it come from and when did? So oftentimes I can go, okay, so we're about 1 inch away. Where were you 2 months ago? Oh, that was the last day of school.
Yeah. So it really attaches to the hair follicle, right? And then just kind of grows with the hair, and it doesn't move unless it's, attached.
Yeah, but technically the follicle is under the scalp. So it is attached to the hair strand. And it is actually bonded. So it doesn't really loosen. People go, oh, just put this on to loosen. No, because when I comb off the eggs, it'll be the actual egg, and then it'll have a tail that looks like a tail, kind of like a teardrop. But in fact, that's a fragment of your hair. So it's bonded and it rips, kind of like acrylic nails. When they rip half of your nails off, they are bonded as well. The molecules seep into the nails and then bond. So anyway, but the deal about the eggs, so 3 types of eggs. We have a viable egg that's brown and it's right on the scalp, and that's the one to be concerned about. Then you have a brown one that's off the scalp. That's a dud. And then you have a white one and it's clear and it's basically empty. So it's a broken, you have the shell remaining. So the deal about a no nit policy is kind of ridiculous because you can have a bunch of broken empty nits and not be active in lice. So a lot of parents have been terrorized by that because you have 3 million hairs. What are the chances you might miss one? And so I've had numerous clients that are like, oh my God, my kid has been out of school for 13 days and we just have a bunch of empty nits, but the nurse at school is on some sort of power trip and, it's just insane. I've literally had to go to like even Hillsborough, all the way to the district, to the nurses in charge of all the districts and say, listen, what are you doing? So therefore, we had to be very good at what we did. Not only did we have to remove the viable nits, the duds, and we had to remove everything. And so it was like the joke that there was no nit left behind,
There's a lot of jokes, I think, with the lice. Nitpicking and combing with the fine tooth comb. Okay. So after the eggs, then it's like growing, right, is a small version of an adult life, which they call the nymph.
Correct. I mean, technically, I guess it's 7 to 10 days and then becomes an adult and then begins laying. And so therefore the cycle takes on. Then just becomes, one lays 200, 200 lays 200.
It would be a fun math equation to see how really exponential it can be. Right?
I tell teachers, it's a great way to teach exponential for life, So fractions, you use pizza, cookies. But anyway, yeah. When I first get my clients, usually the first time they have it, they're closer to 6 to 8 weeks. So they're in a full-fledged 20 to 30 live lice, maybe 50 nymphs on the run, then hundreds of nits. But I have seen severe cases where somebody was in jail for 9 months. They don't care if you have lice, you just have to stick it out. Hundreds. I mean, just hundreds. And then also with kids with depression, I've caught a few teenagers that were under hoodies for a year. Mom didn't figure it out because she was working 2 jobs. Grandma figured it out. And, by the time she was done, I had 50 lice on me. So when it gets, I call it getting in the weeds. So after 6 to 8 weeks, you're in the weeds, and then it just gets bad. But I have never had to cut the hair. There's been one time where I thought it would have been more merciful to cut the hair because it's constant pulling. And so it was pretty tough. There's been 2 clients where I gave them a custom haircut just to cut through the carpet backing of their hair. I couldn't get to their scalp. And those are the ones that had gone into like 6 to 9 months, and they can't even brush their hair. There's nothing. It's like a vat of hair.
Yeah. Wow.
So then it becomes a ministry. What usually would take 45 minutes takes 3-4 hours.
Yeah. What would be the risk of leaving it other than like perpetual growth and contaminating others? What can happen to the person?
So lice is not technically a health issue. It's a nuisance. But my deal is once an open wound, like scratching and blood appears, it should be a health issue. But the risk or the end result would be constant itching. Now, there are some kids that never itch, but that irritation, being contagious to everybody else. But I'm pretty sure in third world countries, they just live with it. And so it's been the most international job I've ever had. So a lot of people come around from all the world, move to the United States or win the lottery. I didn't know you could win a lottery to the United States, but they've never had lice, and they come to Tampa Bay because we play all the time. We're sharing all the time, and they get lice. But I have heard like in India, they have a severe case. They just deal with it. They keep it at bay. They comb their hair every day, but everybody has lice. Their lice are actually bigger. But I've done Russia. I've gotten some people, and they say they just put kerosene on their hair, which is incredibly toxic. It's soluble, seeps into your bloodstream. Your liver has to deal with it. That's just a nightmare. But that's real old school. So desperation. But, you can live with it. It's just typically in third world countries, you just shave your head. Yeah.
So if someone's like itching a lot, how can you distinguish it from another problem like dandruff or something else or some other bug? Or
typically what happens is my clients, when they start itching, they treat their kids for dandruff and 3-month cycle before finding help. The deal is dandruff is white and flat. It's a geometric design. It's flat. It's white. That's it. Sometimes you can blow it off. But if you have really nice natural oils, and you maybe use product, it may become sticky on the hair strand. So people think, oh, for sure, this is lice because it's sticking, but not really. It's just a mixture of dead skin cells, oils, and a little bit of sweat. And so kids that are athletes, now it's interesting because boys that are really athletic and have hair like carpet will actually have dandruff to the point where I call it adult cradle cap.
oh, wow.
Like little kids where they're great, and it's like, oh my God, and then your whole forehead's peeling off. Basically, it's that like that, but then it becomes an oil seal. You've got dead skin cells that are plastered, and that kind of resembles when you leave a Band-Aid on too long, and then you take the Band-Aid off, and your skin is tender and pink underneath. That's what happens there. Then it hurts, so then they don't shampoo. So I have actually been on calls where it's like nobody could cure this lice, and I had literally another company call me and go, we can't figure out what's going on. It was adult cradle cap, and it was not a pleasant experience to remove it, but it was a teenager. She had great hair and she played soccer, and she just used shampoo with a water-based product, and it's an oil, so it's not cutting through. But anyway, so that's sometimes often confused with lice. So the lice is, itching is definitely the sign. Unfortunately, some kids never itch. They salt and pepper the whole school. So it's kind of I liken it to like a bee sting. Some people, a bee sting is nothing. Some people, it'll kill you. But, it's really just examining what you're looking at. So it's very easy for me to determine it's white, flat geometric design, that's dry scalp. Nits on the scalp, it'll be brown, it'll be small. The nits on the end, most people discover lice when they're seeing the empty nits, usually an inch or 2 inches. And then you have to kind of pull them off because they're bonded.
Perfect. Let's get to the nitty gritty.
And we can split hairs.
Oh God. All right. So how do you treat it? What's real? What's effective? What's not? And what do you do?
Well, the old school knit and rid and what's been on the market and has been effective for half a century has run its course. Very similar to flea medication, where they work for a season and then no longer. Now you have to go to the vet to get your pesticide. So the problem is what's on the market. It's effective at weeding out the herd. So a lot of times people will treat the night before they come to me, and I comb and begin, and I still find live lice. So that's the dilemma, is that everybody is doing their due diligence when their kid has lice, but their tools and their treatment is ineffective. So it comes down to proper tools and knowing your enemy, like anything. Then I also kind of think there's a little bit of a scandalous motive too, is they give you ineffective combs, plastic combs. So they don't really want you to succeed. So you'll have to pay for another product. And then the whole deal is that those products are only really meant to kill the live lice. They are not designed to be able. And some of them say, oh, we figured out how to deal with the egg. Yes and no, maybe. So that's the problem. And I think it's still at a pandemic level because there's not an over-the-counter product that works right now. And I just don't think there's any money in owning your own comb and screening yourself once a week. So they make sure that they don't give you a very quality comb in those boxes. They want you to keep buying.
Right. Yeah. We treated my daughter's hair before we brought her to you, and you still found some live ones. So, I mean, it's true. And maybe we got them all dead, right? But then you're still going to have the eggs there, and it doesn't really kill the eggs. Usually it's permethrin, I think, that uses that. And we use that for bed bugs, and it's effective for that, but not quite for the lice, basically not for the nits. And that's the problem, right? So what do you do? What's your approach?
Okay, so I don't use any chemicals. It's all household products. It's technique. And so basically I alter the pH of the hair strand. I manipulate the hair strand, and then I have a quality tool that is engineered to not only get the live lice, but also the nit. And so it's tedious, and you have to be in no rush. But I got to be honest, it took me probably 3 years where I felt like, okay, I can guarantee this. I can guarantee that you are clear. But it is such a numbers game. I mean, 3 million people don't realize. And fine hair, little cheerleader hair, they have the most hair on the planet. So that's why little Caucasian cheerleaders are my best customers, and the gymnasts. And one story real quick on the gymnast, I just had a whole flock of these girls coming from this gym. And one of the mothers was like, what is going on? And it was actually one of the older gymnasts that figured it out. And she says, we're open every day, but the higher level girls that are, really talented, after they do their workout, they jump in the foam pit, take their hair down, and talk with their coach. And sure enough, and the mom goes, I knew that foam pit was a disaster, So anyway, we cleared that up, and got everybody a comb, and then that was the last I heard of them. But it's been kind of fun. And I've done dance studios too. It's kind of the same thing, get everybody on board, and then they're fine and they move on their way. But I remember I did this Jewish school daycare, and they're like, oh my God, lice was one of the plagues.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because dancers and gymnasts usually have their hair tied back pretty good. So you wouldn't think it would be such a risky thing until you say they take their hair down. And then now I'm terrified of foam pits, but that's okay.
Yeah, but no, it really, honestly, people think you got to do head to head or it's your hair swinging. It's really more on their clothing. So everybody's like, oh, you're never going to ever wear your hair down. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to do it either. Then also, you're never going to have another slumber party. And it's like, oh my God, that was so much fun as a kid. So I say, no, just use the comb. So literally, we're just going back what they did in the 50s. Just brush your hair. And when you're putting a ponytail in, just run the comb through. Very simple. Very simple. But it's one of those things that you just don't consider until it happens. So most of the time, people do not think they have lice. They think they have dry scalp or they have dandruff. And so they kind of go through that and then eventually realize, it's lice. So you see the signs of it.
So your approach was basically combing, right? You mentioned like
Yeah.
changing the pH of the hair and
Yeah. So I have
what does
this
that
little
mean?
secret formula that I've had competitors call up and say, exactly what number on the pH chart do you use? And I'm like, come on, really? I'm like, I'm
That is
pretty much
funny.
giving away. But yeah, I'm very systematic and you're just accountable for all that. And normally I'm pretty easygoing and not a perfectionist, but when it comes to doing lice, you just have to be a perfectionist. So it doesn't matter how tired you are. And like some of these cases that I've had where there's just like, I comb through the hair and I wipe it on a towel and it looks like a broken cigarette, like a pile of tobacco. That's how many nits they have. I mean, kind of challenging and exciting, but I literally have to do the exact same technique, whether you have 10,000 nits or 10, because it's the last two that matter. So that's the problem with any kind of home treatment is you do a good job, but what are the chances that you get every single solitary nit? So that's viable. So I actually do a 4-step procedure. I end up checking 4 times before I send you out the door. It's pretty rigorous. I kind of can do it while my eyes are shut, so I make it look pretty easy. And I wonder how good, like I could probably ask you when you got home and started combing your daughter's hair, was it easy or was it really difficult getting used to the comb and just doing a simple? Was it easy or did you have some adjustment?
It wasn't too bad. The worst part is like splitting it up and then combing, splitting up her hair. Yeah.
Yeah. I just, if you have good fingernails, you can just do the little thing
Right.
or like I use my little designer chopstick that does a perfect. But yeah, even when I was in beauty school, like for perms to make those perfect sections, it was hard. But yeah, so it's a 4-step procedure. And when you go out the door, it's as if you've had a spa treatment. So did you notice how nice her hair was?
Yeah, definitely. I was jealous.
I tell them it's going to be a bittersweet. It's not exactly a pleasant thing, but most of them, the kids are like all happy with their beautiful hair when they leave.
So what about prevention? I mean, I know what your answer is going to be, but what about all these sprays? Like there's some with like rosemary, or what are your thoughts on these things?
So tea tree, jasmine, rosemary, mint, neem, pretty much name anything. They're supposed to be deterrents. And the problem is that for all the years that I've been doing this, people were like, well, I use tea tree in my shampoo every day. And I'm like, it's a deterrent. This is not a sealed deal. And I always tell people, it's like, if I haven't drank water for 5 days and there's a puddle, I'm going to go drink the water. So my deal is for survival. I don't think they really care at that point, what's deterrent and what's not. So USF and I came to the same conclusion. They did research on it, that it is truly all about the combs. And so what I found interesting is that in ancient Egyptian tombs and the mummies where the royalty, they provided everything in the tomb that they would need for eternity. And lo and behold, there were wooden lice combs. Wow. So if you go to a museum, you'll see your wooden lice comb. Bottom line is that they work. The deal is you just need to comb your hair, brush your teeth, comb your hair.
And obviously we're not talking a regular comb for the listeners, right? It's a dedicated lice comb.
Yeah, but even back in the day, the old big combs that we used to have in the 70s where they're fine here and they're thick here. I mean, think about it. You brush your hair, and then you comb it with the thicker to get all the tangles out. Then the fine tooth comb.
Fine tooth comb.
Yeah. So it would be better than nothing. I mean, perfect would be using my comb, a professional comb. But, looking back, it's just crazy because I remember thinking nobody combs their hair. So the comb kind of fell out of our culture in like the 70s, and then the afro came in. And so the combs that came in were the wide tooth combs. But otherwise, you just brought a brush. Brushes have evolved, but nobody combs their hair anymore. Well, it just so happens now, then you can spend money for Rid and Nix, and eventually it turned into big business. And interestingly enough, like Walgreens, you do not see my commercial comb there yet, because in order to get their product into a Walgreens, they have to have inventory, the money first, and then the inventory to put their product in every Walgreens worldwide. So to take out Rid or Nix or what you're buying there is a huge hit. And then to get in a quality comb, it's quite an investment. So The comb has finally gotten on Amazon. And I had my own label, but these people that are selling the Amazon, they're making like 3 cents on every sale of their comb. But I suppose if you sell 1 million of them daily, you can make a profit. But for a small business, it's not worth it. But yeah, that's corporate America right now. So you're not going to see the comb that is highly effective in any of a retail setting at this time.
Yeah.
Well, there was one lady that actually was here in Tampa. She doesn't work anymore. I put her out of business because she used to be $450 in Hillsborough County. It was $350 to treat her, and then you had to come back for $65 and take out the nits that she missed a week later. And then she sold you the comb that I gave to you for $35. So it was $450. And so she had quite the business. So she saved up all her money and became the fairy tales, the product that's in like it's online. And then it was in Ulta stores. So she saved up all her money and put inventory in there and did sell the comb at one time. But now I think they pulled that out of it because she doesn't want you to actually be successful. She wants you to buy her product. So I've never encouraged deterrence. Why waste money? This is reusable. The sprays and all that stuff is not something else a mom has to do. So keep it simple. I tell people if you just screen your hair once a week by just combing your hair for 2 minutes, you're good. And you don't have to spend any money. And it's good for your scalp, stimulates blood flow, removes dead skin cells. It's a nice comb. It's a nice comb.
Yeah.
Beards and mustaches.
Oh, gosh. So was there anything else you'd like to share, first of all? And then I want you to tell us where people can find you.
Well, I can share one more thing, some of my mottos that I used to put on my business cards. Best friends share everything. That was one of my mottos.
Nice.
So I try to really, for the kids, I just try to make it like, hey, so you have friends. And, I really encourage kids and parents to it just is a sign that your kid is normal. And then a caring family is a sharing family. So during the shutdown, everybody in the whole family had lice. It was crazy. I deemed myself essential. So we stayed busy.
Absolutely.
We still worked, but was usually one child because they caught it early within that 4-week period. With the shutdown, the whole family had it. Everybody was crawling. We got them back on track. And then hugs means bugs. That's my other motto. So yes, I am Tampa Lice Removal. I'm online. We service, I have a few ladies that we service all of Tampa Bay. And we are primarily mobile, but because I'm semi-retired, I will see people in my home. And if they're desperate and want to come at all hours of the night, that I can accommodate them. But primarily my ladies will go, which is a wonderful luxury to not have to drive. And when there's a family, everybody doesn't have to sit there and wait in line. You're in your home. We bring in everything we need, set up, screen the whole family, give you the good news first that not everybody has it, and then just treat the people that need to be treated. And then we're gone. Unmarked car, but then we set you up so that you have the right tools and the know-how to stay lice-free. It's been the most rewarding job of all my career. I started working when I was 14. And I have never had such worldwide contacts or information or stories. Very international job. And then people just appreciate it because you're a mama bear backed into the corner. You're doing everything you can and nothing's working. So one of my favorite quotes, and I don't know if everybody's going to appreciate this, but I remember a dad said, listen, my wife is crying and I'm getting ready to. Please help us. And it's like kind of like that, And so when I leave, people are grateful. And then, like I said, I just set people up for success. So my pleasure. And and my crew is really pretty sweet too. They're real sensitive and have kids of their own too. But lice is for everybody. And that's my last one, that lice is like Jesus. They love everybody. So.
I mean, I definitely had a great experience. I had the psychological lice, I think, the night before we came to you. So you definitely put my mind at ease and I was able to sleep the next night. So that was nice. But I think you're doing a great job. And I definitely feel like your approach to it is much more appreciated than someone trying to make money and not get them all or, serve whatever purpose they need. I think everybody should be reaching out to you. I appreciate that. And we didn't talk about what to do in the home. And I wanted to ask that real quick. So what do you think? Do you have to bag up everything? Do you change the sheets or what's the deal? Real quick.
Well, funny, when I first started my job, I actually kind of ended up on the internet with that advice because women are proactive. So I had this little flyer and it's been out there. So apparently I'm like some authoritarian of that, but it was like, bag everything for 2 weeks and vacuum and change your sheets and all that. And so now, knowing lice much better, I realized that everything dies within 36 hours in your house. So technically, it's really not your house. It's those eggs left behind amongst 3 million. So what I do, and that's another reason why I give you the comb. The 3 reasons I give you the comb when you leave here is because there could be one lurking for the next 36 hours in your house. So by practicing and utilizing your comb and getting you familiar with it, it's a safety net. So you will be able to just comb it out because lice to comb out is very easy. And I tell people it's okay to get a louse. It's leaving it there for 4 weeks. That's the problem. Right. So if you've been treated and you just comb it out, there's no fear. It's no worry. So then the other reason is after you're practicing your combing, your soul is comforted because you're not seeing anything. It's gone and it's over because there's always that lurking like, oh my God, it could still be here. And then the prevention, just the fact that you don't have to keep calling and spending hundreds of dollars for professional care just because your kid is active. Because it's out there, it's not going anywhere, but you can, I tell people it's out there, but it doesn't have to be in your home.
Absolutely.
And so I can't remember if I answered the question.
You did. I mean, I think maybe change the sheets once, right? Put the things away for 36 hours and then, keep combing.
Yeah. So on severe cases, I do kind of encourage people to maybe isolate, like if you have leather, to sit on the leather, that type of deal. But really, everything is just going to die out. If you have a substantial home, there's nowhere you're going to find it. So it's really more of a die out. But for peace of mind, I tell people you can vacuum, you can wipe down, a leather, But honestly, changing the bedding. And then when you change the bedding, people also want to like spray chemicals all over their mattress. And I'm like, don't do that. That's a respiratory nightmare. Yeah. You don't need to be breathing that. Or every time you sit on a couch, a poof of chemicals comes into your house. So I don't believe in any of that. They don't work anyway. And the pillow. So the method to their madness is they would never, ever crawl under anything or burrow into anything because that's a death sentence. So what you will see is the live lice will always get to the top of something. So if I see them on a bed, it's always on the top of the comforter, on top of the pillow. So by just merely stripping the bedding and throwing it into the wash, and some people do hot, that's fine. But if it's a delicate spread, then I would just do cold. They're not that amazing. They aren't like an airborne virus or something, but just light cleaning around the house and regular cleaning is not a big deal. So, but then if it is a severe case, I might say, okay, take a king size sheet, throw it over a couch after you've been treated or for the 36 hours. And why don't we just all stay here? But what's so cute is there's times when I've gone into a house and the parents are all in the living room and there's a big, huge sliding glass door behind them. And the kids are all like, out in the backyard. The parents have put them behind them. Please, can we come in? It's so cute. But yeah. So I always tell people that, bed bugs are much worse. They live for 2 weeks and then they go deep into your walls to lay their eggs. And it's like 32,000. So lice is the bug of choice. Right. That's the one you want. You don't want the bed bugs. And honestly, the itching for lice will be here. The itching for bed bugs is here, upper body. They come out at night and just anything above the sheets. So it's just general cleaning. And you don't, like I said, you don't have to cook your pillow. I've had people cook their pillows for hours and it's like, no, it's just the bedding. So.
Awesome.
And that's it.
And that's it. All right. Comb. That is the message. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jenny, for coming on the podcast and telling us everything possible that we could ever want to know about lice.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun.
It's Lice University.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So we already got your information. You said Tampa Bay Lice, right? And
Well,
is there a
actually,
website or anything?
yeah, it's actually Tampa Lice Removal.
Tampa Lice Removal. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, and be sure to check that in the www dot, because I have had some competitors
Okay.
have a landing page or whatever the header that's using my name with clinic added.
Okay.
So, but then the www is their business. So,
Okay. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes. So what is it? It's www.
Tampa Lice Removal.com.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I had fun.
Thank you.